This is Canada Reads American Style, featuring two friends who love Canada Reads and Canadian literature. Welcome our host Rebecca from Michigan and Tara from Ontario.
Hello and welcome to Canada Reads American Style. It is day 3 of CBC Canada Reads. And I'm Tara. I'm here with my podcast partner, Rebecca. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello, good afternoon. Day 3.
3.
Isn't it? Can you believe it? It's already day 3.
I know.
It flies by.
It does. I feel like I've made new friends. I was thinking that today as I was watching the debates that I'm like, that whenever we talk about them, I always write Michelle or Saïd, Maggie. And I'm like, I feel like by the end of the week, I always feel like I have like new friends who then don't want to talk to me anymore. But that's fine. That's totally fine.
Okay, I love that. That is so funny. But I kind of agree in terms of the vibe because Saïd is just like blowing my mind.
Yeah.
That man, I look at him and I just think he just exudes like this warmth and this really gentle, fun, because he's got a sense of humor, you know. There's something really magical about him. And again, I didn't know who he was, but I'm enjoying all of them. But yeah, he's a sweetheart, I think.
Can we jump? I'm just going to jump to the midway point or something when they did the friend messages today.
Mm-hmm.
And Saïd's, oh my God, he was so delightful when he was listening because you could see him going, this is a really good. And then when he found out who it was, because he was like, I just love that he didn't actually recognize who his friend was talking. And then he was like, how did you find him? He was so lovely. Yeah.
That was probably the best laugh of the show so far this week. That was really adorable. Yeah, that was funny.
Yep.
I know that look in his eye when he realized, it was like, oh, that was so cute. I loved it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump in. I know right at the beginning, they do their little like, Linwood, how are you feeling and all that to the person whose book got it voted off the day before. I loved Maggie's advice for Linwood as a wild card. Do you remember?
No, I forgot.
Yeah.
What did she say?
She just told him to have fun, enjoy the power of being the wild card, and enjoy listening to a great debate. Like she said, all the pressure's kind of taken off of you. And I just really liked her advice to him today.
Yeah, you're right. That was really good. And I do think she has settled in a little bit more, you know. I can't even imagine how freaking stressful that whole thing is. I can't even imagine.
No.
Oh my gosh. But can I mention the thing that struck me as soon as the show started?
What's that?
Allie's shirt. OMG. I want that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where he got it. I know one time, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, he wore something that everybody was buzzing about, a sweater or something,
I think it was last year, the poetry sweatshirt.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And everybody said, where did you get it? And so I kind of think I want to ask him on Friday, where did he get that shirt?
Yeah.
Because I loved it. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to say that.
No, that's fair enough. I also loved Maggie's dress too. I thought she looked, I mean, all of them always look stunning, but I'm like, that dress she had on today, I think it was pink and shine. I know. I loved it. I thought she looked great today too.
It was Maggie's dress, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, because they cut when they went to Allie, and I was just really all over that shirt going like, I love that thing. And then they cut to her when he introduced her, and I went, oh,
yeah,
like that material just was really fascinating, and the colors and the design. Yeah, I agree with you. That was beautiful.
She looked fantastic. Okay, now for our fashion week is over. Let's move on. So I loved that they actually posed lots of questions today. Mm-hmm. Allie did. And the CBC Canada Reads team, I think they're doing a fantastic job with the questions this year.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Really pinpointing and getting to the meat of the books kind of thing. So let's start. Question 1 was, why is the book you selected the right one for you? Any thoughts, Rebecca?
I really love this question because even though it's kind of a no-brainer in many ways, and that they'll often kind of tell you why as the days go by, but however, they said things that really surprised me. And I think it was Shayla when she was talking about her father and the trauma her father experienced and that he had, ended his life. I mean, I mean, that was certainly a surprise to me,
Yeah.
and that she was able to be so vulnerable and to say that to everyone, that one just really surprised me, and I also love that Michelle talked about, her own mother and the journey her mother's on right now.
Yeah.
So, clearly, there's a reason why they picked those books, right?
Yeah. Same. All three of them had like a personal connection to the books that they chose. And I thought it was quite beautiful that they all shared it too.
Oh, yeah, because Saïd said that he sort of identified with both Lily and her
And her
mother.
parents. Yeah.
And her parents, yeah, and I
Yeah.
thought, "Oh my gosh, you're right." So I loved the question, I love the answers.
Yeah. Okay. Question two. Each book involves difficult subject matter, but also hope. Which book did you connect with the least and why? I like it when they do that too. Instead of like the most,
Yeah.
the least.
So go ahead, I'll let you
Okay.
tackle this one.
I'm looking through my notes. And interestingly, it was kind of like a toss up between Dandelion and Etta, and I'm going to call it Etta et al. Because Saeed referred to it as that. And I thought that was brilliant. It
Mhm.
was kind of a toss up between those two books, actually, that they, for the contestants or the defenders. Just there was like a lack of closure or resolution in terms of Dandelion that
Mhm.
bothered people.
Yeah, and then that ending of Etta et al,
Hmm.
did have I mean, I know that wasn't a positive ending for everyone, who
Yeah.
read the book.
I did like, so Michelle especially seemed to have issues with Dandelion in that she didn't, the story for the mother leaving, just she wasn't satisfied with it at all, her reasoning and all this stuff. So, but I loved Saeed's response in that he brought out everything that the mother had, everything that had happened to the mother. But he said something that I'd actually forgotten about in the book, in that Lily's, the father's, her husband's betrayal in not telling
Mhm.
her when her mother was sick so that she could go home. And
Mhm.
I'm like, perfect Saeed, like picking out that little nugget of being like, I get what you're saying, but actually here's, and I was like, that is great um, motivation for wanting to leave for the mother, not wanting to leave, but wanting to go back home.
Mhm.
Because that did anger me in the book when he did that to her.
Yeah, and I think too, partly for me with, Dandelion, you know, we didn't it wasn't first person through the mother's voice, so we
Hmm.
don't know all of the things that could have motivated her, and
Yes.
also, if you're on the outside looking in, you don't always know what is bothering someone else. If they are unable to share, whether they don't feel safe, they're in a safe environment, or they're just inarticulate for an emotional reason, who knows? I guess I'm a little protective of the mother in the
Mm.
story because I feel like when people like even what Michelle said about her, I was kind of like, oh, it took me back a little bit because I
Yeah.
just feel like I thought the author did a wonderful job showing us a woman who struggled. We don't always fully know why, but then she went back and she still struggled. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And I think that she was a really compelling character who didn't really have a voice through the book, through most of the book.
Yeah.
And I just feel a little protective of the mother.
Yeah. No, so I really liked his response. Before we move on to the next question, I have a question for you. So everyone responded, I believe, with their book. But then when Ali went to Shayla, instead of asking her which book, he changed the question for her and said, what does your book say about resilience? Why do you think he did that? Any idea?
I don't know, that did because it threw me off in that moment, and I thought, "Well, what's going on here?" Yeah, I don't know, that was why do you think? I mean
I don't know. That's why I was hoping some insight, because I wanted to know what she was going to say, like which book she was going to choose.
Mhm,
Um, and I don't know. I don't know if it's because everyone else had either said Dandelion and or Etta and Otto, so maybe he thought she was going to say the same thing, so he wanted to throw like something different into the conversation, maybe.
mhm,
I like getting her to talk about, well, maybe that's it, because everyone, there are three books left, and everyone had talked about Etta et al. And Dandelion. and no one had mentioned Two-Spirit Journey, which is good in this circumstance because it was which book did you connect with the least. So maybe he was just trying to give Shayla time to get Two-Spirit Journey in there in the conversation before they moved on to the next question. Does that make sense?
I guess I'm just gonna have to say I have no idea
Yeah.
why he did that.
Mm,
Maybe we should
because
ask him that.
we should
Okay, I'm
write
making
that
a
down.
note.
Yeah.
I know I'm gonna make a note. So the resilience question.
Yeah. Okay. The next question. This was my favorite question when they got into the writing and they said, essentially, which book is the best written? This was my favorite question because they all had such fantastic answers.
Mm-hmm.
And because I all three books, the style of writing is so different in all three
Mm-hmm.
books. So I really wanted, it wasn't like they were all just narrative fiction or whatever. So what did you think? Anything stand out here?
This is my question
Yep.
because I kept trying to say to people, and I'm sure I said it, I'm confident I said it on an earlier podcast, that for me, Dandelion, I said there was something about it at times that took me out of the story. And that is exactly what Michelle said. She said
Yep.
the exposition kept popping out at me. She said it took me out of the journey. And then my boy, Linwood said it's called an info dump. And I was like,
Yes.
thank you. That I didn't know that's what it was called, but I
Yeah.
thought that is, I mean, it's a criticism. That's not a massive criticism. I enjoyed Dandelion on,
Mm-hmm.
I quite
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed it, but it kept pulling me out and telling me things that I thought, like there was the example I showed you and many others who I talked to was something about she had gone into like a cafe or something and had this special coffee drink or something.
I think white coffee. Was it white
Yeah.
coffee? Something like
And
that.
then
Yeah.
she explained like, and then this white coffee contains this and it's the history of this. And I was like, what the, why? I don't care. Just tell me you had a white coffee, but why are you giving me all this details about coffee? So that's what I'm saying. That was my best example. Well, when I finally remembered to start documenting them, because as it was happening, I just kept going like, what? I don't need that information. So anyway, I love that Michelle and Linwood brought up something that was
Yeah.
bugging me that I was unable to articulate as well.
Yeah.
How about you?
Okay, so my favorite was, and this is not a shocker because people know that I was not a huge fan of how Two Spirit Journey was written, the style. And Linwood said that it's like written that like a transcript, a valuable transcript, but that it is not a great read. But what I loved Shayla's response to this. I thought she nailed it, and I was just so impressed with it. So I will just quickly paraphrase that she said the writing style was a collaboration and honored two methods of sharing, and that sharing a story through the Indigenous framework involves several things, one of which is the relationship between the researcher and the research participant. And
Mm-hmm.
that Ma-Nee and Mary have developed this relationship full of trust, which allows for the collaboration that they had, which is not often seen in Western research writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not realize, like, I did not realize that. I did not think about it. So I mean, do I now like the style of writing? No, but I better understand it, and I have an appreciation from where it was coming from between the two of them. I really liked her answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. I thought that was a great answer. It was something I wouldn't have known. It was something I've learned. It's
Hmm.
something that I will take into account when going forward. And I say that because again, the what's that book, City of Dirty Water? I can never remember. I'm afraid who
Yeah.
wrote it. I cannot remember his name. I
Yeah.
feel like it's like
I
Clayton,
feel
David Clayton,
Clayton,
something or
yeah,
something.
I can't
But
remember either.
anyway, it's like he had said something along the lines of people were complaining about the way how his book jumped and was like wonky that way or something. I like the book, but he said that is how we do oral storytelling. That's
Hmm.
how we do that. And so then I was like, okay, you know what? I need to open my eyes and heart to be a little more, available to different ways that people tell stories.
Yeah.
And so I try to do that now. Again, like you, it may not be my preference for reading it, but I appreciate when you get that full answer
Yeah.
and clarification that you go, "Oh, okay, well, that's cool. I didn't know
Yeah.
that."
Yeah. Yeah. And then I will say another Shayla moment, because then I think Michelle then later said that she found it again. She said it's an important story, Two Spirit Journey, but as an academic text, she found it dense and dry, and that the story would have been more accessible in a different form, which I agree with. But then I loved Shayla's response. One that she said she found it to be very accessible, which I think we're just showing how there are so many different types of readers out there, and
Mhm.
praise us all because I think we're fantastic. And then she recommended the audiobook, which I love that
Mhm.
that she was like, if you're having trouble with this book, because I think she said she also listened to the audiobook. That I can't remember, but she recommended the audiobook, which it sounds like Ma-Nee may be the one reading it herself.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah,
And I like that too because I said to myself, "Oh, well, then maybe that might be another way for me to read the book is
yeah,
through audio." And I love that because she said it was like being in a room with your cookum, like
yeah,
sitting there and she's telling you the story. And I thought, okay, I think I could manage that. I think that would be a better way for me to access this
yeah.
book.
Yeah, so I really appreciated that she defended, she gave a reason for the style of writing, and then gave an alternative that if you are having trouble with this, check out the audiobook.
Hmm.
Yeah, I like that. Our next question, which book took you on a journey that you found the least satisfying and why?
Okay, and now I realize that's where they made the comments about the exposition popping out.
Mm,
That's where. So I was thinking
yes.
it was the other question about the style of writing. So this one, I thought it was interesting that Linwood said this, and I kind of thought, "Ooh, this is." I mean, I don't think it changed my opinion about the book, but I thought, "Oh, this is an interesting way to look at this." He said that Etta et al. It said the sort of the magic realism detracted from the storyline of the dementia.
Mm,
And I thought that is kind of interesting because if you think about it, that in some ways, and I know that book was not for him, but I think on some level, it was, it kind of was a story about her dementia. I mean, throughout the story, throughout the whole book, there's that thread, right?
yeah.
But because there's a lot of other stuff going on, it does make that because of the magic realism, it kind of does make it less about her dementia.
Mm,
And because I think if somebody were to ask me, I would say like, "Oh, it's magic realism." I wouldn't necessarily have said, "Oh, it's about this woman with dementia who went on this journey." So I don't think it changes how I feel about the book at all, but I did think that was an interesting point he made.
yeah.
So,
I was going to say I liked Saeed's response to because Michelle said dandelion that it took her out, especially like the conversations and all the details. But I did like his response in that he was like, "But this is how when I talk to other immigrants, this is what we talk about. We talk about how we got our citizenship, where we are on the pathway to citizenship, how long we can stay." He's like, "This is what we talk about." And so,
mhm.
so I was like, I really like that. I liked his defense of it too. Yeah,
Yeah, I love that when he said
yeah,
that because again, I started thinking about it and I have friends who had green cards and who became citizens and whose parents didn't, and especially current conditions the way they are in the US, there's this whole conversation around all of it now. People are really talking about that. But I've loved hearing that before the craziness here, that's the conversation people would have. That would be important to them to share that information. So I thought that was
yeah,
really I love that. Mhm.
yeah. Okay, this might be our last question.
Mhm.
Which book brought a fresh perspective to depicting love in all its forms?
Uh okay, until maybe you should go because
Okay.
nothing really stood out for me. Although I'm sure once you start talking it will, but I don't
Okay.
have anything in my notes really.
My main takeaway from this is that they all gave love to all of the books. Like they all found different types of love in all three books, and they loved the depiction of the love in all of them.
Mhm.
But interestingly, I think the most was the Etta and Otto. They really loved the different depictions of love, several of them, like at least three of them or four of them looking at my notes, like Saïd, Maggie loved the love triangle in Etta and all, Michelle, of
Mhm.
course. but yet it was the book that got voted out. So
Yeah.
I just think it was a tight vote anyways, but I'm like, interesting. Two-Spirit Journey, I think, oh my gosh, yeah, it had, I think, all the forms of love, to be honest,
Hmm.
in that book. And when they were talking about this question, that's when I started thinking about it, and I was like, oh, like everything that she did, and all the forms of, and all the people that she loved and loved her in return, and
It's funny. I think this was the question where I started to say, I think it's going to be Two-Spirit Journey because really, you know, the issues that people may have had with the style of the writing, and then the question, you know, what's the theme about the perspective, or what is it?
oh, changing the narrative.
Narrative, yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that anyway, this question sort of for me solidified it. I thought, I think it's going to be Two-Spirit. That's
Oh,
just
that's
kind
going
of
to
how I
win it.
felt. Yeah, I kind of just felt that way because you can't. I mean, the other ones, people had more things to say about the other books because I think Shayla said in with Etta et al, she didn't feel the connection,
Hmm.
and then with Dandelion, she did feel it. And
Yeah.
then anyway, and then Saïd said that, or no, who was it? Somebody said there was an absence of love. Who
Oh,
was it?
that
Was it
was
Linwood?
Linwood when he was
Yes,
talking
said
about Dandelion.
that's right. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, I just felt like there were some things going back and forth on that question, but Two-Spirit, everybody agreed
Yeah.
about Two-Spirit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember where it was but I found this conversation today that I really got insight into why Shayla was drawn to this book so much, not only because of her father's experience, uh, but also she is obviously, and I should have realized this, very much into activism.
Hmm.
And I could just see, I'm like, I get why she's drawn to that book and maybe wasn't drawn to like Etta and Otto and and maybe even Jenny's boy, because uh the story was there, but there's no call to action in Jenny's boy.
Right.
Often in times, like, there was a call to inaction,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
anything. So okay, now we are into our final words. They were each given, the last three books standing, 30 seconds to defend their book. I thought they were all fantastic, all three of them. So what I loved about Saeed when he talked about Dandelion, because up until now he's always been talking about the immigrant experience, and he's like, but you don't have to be an immigrant to connect to Dandelion. But he was like, Canada is a big enough country that if you even move from one province to another, you're getting the immigrant experience. If you've ever tried to fit into a group and not been able to fit in, that's the immigrant experience. And I was like, kudos, Saeed. It was brilliant. Yeah.
Brilliant response. I agree. And I loved it especially because, like you said, up until that point, he was kind of saying, this is what this book is. And then he just really flipped it on its head
Yeah.
and gave us a different perspective. And it was brilliant. And I almost, in a way, I don't know if he held it late in the game or not. I don't really know if he did it that way, but I thought it was such a brilliant response. And it wasn't a tired response. It wasn't
No.
something anybody had said up till this point,
Yep.
and it was fresh and it was direct, and I love that.
Yep. Yep. I also loved Michelle's. Actually, it was like
Hmm.
not as like strong. However, she was. What did I? This again, paraphrasing. That in a world that often tells us that we are too old, too late, or too lost, Etta et al. Tells us to keep going, and I really loved that as well as a take on the book overall. Yeah.
Hmm. I agree. Again, I had same thing written down. I agree. Yeah. Well, we agree on that one. Okay,
Yep.
go ahead. Now go ahead and talk about Two Spirit.
Okay, let's go with Sheila. Oh, and this is where I got the call to action and agency. So she said that it was not only about the trauma and the suffering, but also about unconditional love, and that Ma-Nee inspires you to take action and have agency for yourself and others, which obviously Ma-Nee does in her community. Again, like a great way to sum up her book, but to also introduce something a little different too, like being like, don't focus on the trauma, but there's other stuff too. Like the call
Yeah.
to action, I think is quite important to her.
Yeah. which then the vote came around and then I was
Yep.
surprised. So
Yeah.
I was slightly surprised.
Okay. What surprised you about the vote? Should we go through who voted what?
Yeah, so I have my little grid here.
Yep.
So Michelle and Linwood voted for Dandelion, and yesterday Linwood voted for Etta and Otto.
Mhm.
So I thought that kind of surprised me that he flipped and decided to vote Dandelion off. So that was my
Yep.
surprise. And then Maggie, Shayla voted for Etta and Otto, and
Yep.
then Saïd for Two Spirit Journey. And I
Yeah.
was thinking, Saïd, when he voted that way, it could have been saying, like, hey, that's my opportunity to say that's the strongest book. We're going into the end, and
Yeah.
I've got to try to at least put a stop to it, right? And then it was so adorable when he had to break the tie and he
I
did not
know.
even realize he had to break the tie.
I know.
It
I
was
know.
so
I
cute.
also although I think he loves Etta at all too. Like as a
Hmm.
book, I think he loves that book. He was very effusive several times about it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I know when he had to break the tie, I loved the expression on his face when
It
Ali
was
was
cute.
like, "That's on you." Like
Yeah. Yeah. He goes, I
if
don't know
you
that I don't know that you connected with that, but you are the one who's breaking the tie. And he went, oh, like his eyes were like, oh, like, like they say, a deer in the headlights. It was so
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know it was painful. I would never want to have to break a tie because then
No.
all the stuff is on you, all the attention, and it's
Yeah.
hard to do that. But yeah. So
Yep. So we
that
said,
means, go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, said goodbye to Etta et al. Today.
Hmm.
Yep. And
So
yeah.
now tomorrow we have Dandelion and Two
Mhm.
Spirit Journey.
Yes.
You and I did say
We did say Two Spirit Journey.
before we read any of the books, we said Two Spirit Journey. So there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
And I do think, how do you feel do you think it's going to win?
I think it might. So let's see. If we look at today's, like Michelle and Linwood both voted against Dandelion when they
Hmm.
could have voted against Two Spirit Journey. Obviously, Saeed is going to go against Two Spirit Journey. Bum, bum, bum. Um, I don't know where Maggie's going to go but although she did yesterday vote against Dandelion, right?
Yesterday she voted, no, Monday she voted against Etta.
Yep.
Then she voted against Jenny's boy. So who do we think then?
I
So we
think it's going to
think,
go. I think Two Spirit Journey will be the last book standing.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it's actually only had one vote so far
Yeah.
this week is just Saeed's today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to win. So I
Yeah.
don't think we'll be surprised.
No. I love this group of defenders though. Every day I find the conversation getting better. They're also uh oh my gosh, I had the word on my tongue and now it's gone. Uh you go. Give your thoughts while I think.
Okay, I agree with you that this was a really wonderful week so far, and I don't anticipate that it'll be any different tomorrow. And I think it's because, at least from my perspective, and I think most people would agree, what we want is a really good deep dive into the literature, and we've had that. Everybody
Yep.
brought their A game, but in this sort of quiet, respectful way to honor each other's ability to get their points across. Nobody got snarky or whatever, which I really, really appreciate because really we're doing this weird artificial thing where we're going to say, pick 5 books, now pick the best out of the 5. And for crying out loud, we love them all. Books aren't really meant to be competitive in that way,
Mhm.
although there's all kinds of awards and stuff. But so I feel like they just honored the goal, which is to give us a great discussion, and they did it in spades.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's it. You've said it perfectly. I have no idea what was in my mind, but it was essentially what you just said. And I want Ali to be like to run a book club that we can all join because he moderates so well. Like I
He
know I'm
does.
not the first one to say this, but he's like beautiful. It's beautiful what he's doing.
Yeah, and it's so funny because he said he's been doing this 9 years. I guess as long as he keeps doing it. I started with him. He was my first host
Okay.
for Canada Reads. That's when I started. So this is my 9th year. I hope that he is always the person who's doing it because I agree with you. He brings something to the show. First of all, he's funny as hell, and I love that about him, but he also, like you said, he's just, well, the man does all of that talking and comedy and everything for a living. He's a master at it. So
Yep.
we can just sit back and know it's in good hands.
Yep.
It's whatever happens, it'll be great. And yeah, we just think he's fabulous.
Yep. And there's just like such a ring of respect on that table this year.
Oh,
I
I
love
love
it.
that.
Yeah.
That's nice. I agree with
Don't you
you.
feel like they all just respect each other, even if they're like critiquing each other's books? They're like,
I love that ring of
yeah,
respect. I couldn't have said that better. That's beautiful.
there we go. It
I
took
love
me
it.
like 4 minutes to think of that phrase, but
So let me just say too, tomorrow then, for all of you who are listening to the podcast, tomorrow Tara and I will be going live with our good friend Jolene, who is Bookworm Adventure Girl. She has a YouTube channel that's very, very popular. And the three of us will be discussing the final day, kind of the wrap up of the whole week and what we thought of it. And we will be going live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And it will be on our YouTube channel, which is, again, just Canada Reads American Style. And it will be in the show notes. So hopefully you'll join us there. And obviously, if you can't listen to it live, it'll still be up and you'll be able to listen to it. And bonus, there could very well be a little funny thing at the beginning where we try to figure out if we've gone live yet, because we're still working through that process. We're not that smooth.
chances are it will happen. It happens 90% of the time.
It
Are
does.
we live? I think we're recording. Are we live?
I know. So that's a little bonus. You get to see us also, like Saïd today, the deer in the headlights look. Are we on? Are we on? So, and then also on Friday, we will again, because every year he has said yes, and he is just like well, I should say every year since we started asking him. Ali Hassan will join us at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on a YouTube Live on Friday. And we have some questions already for him. If you have any questions you'd like us to ask, throw them in the chat, in the comments and everything. Let us know. But we are looking forward to talking to Ali. And it's 2:00 on Friday, so maybe not a lot of people will join us on the live. But again, it will be available afterwards, and you can watch our discussion with Ali again. And you want to tell him, I just thought this was so cute. You want to tell him when he sent us an email, what he said? Because I thought it was so cute.
Oh, it was so
You
cute.
remember that?
He addressed us as my friends or something. It was like, hello,
Yeah.
friends or something. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, he called
I
us
know.
friends.
I know. I loved it.
Me too. It made my day. I even told my husband, I'm like, Ali Hassan called us friends. And he's like, whatever. Okay, that's it. That's a wrap on day 3. And we will see you tomorrow for day 4. See who the champion, who's left standing, and happy Canada Reads. Thank you for joining us on our bookish journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing Canada Reads American Style wherever you listen. You can connect with the podcast and Rebecca on Instagram at Canada Reads American Style, and with Tara at On a Branch Reads. Until next time, keep reading.